Hi, Tigers. All right, we are in our last chapter, chapter 5, whole handful of washed up. So go ahead right now. I'm going to make this into presentation mode. That way you can write down your Cornell note questions. All right, go ahead, pause this if you need to so you can write this down. Number 1, what problems have been solved in this chapter? And provide at least 2 examples. Your examples should be what? Text evidence, text-based with evidence stems, quotation marks, and direct quotes from the text. Okay. Number 2, what has Mr. Garcia, how, how has Mr. Garcia changed from the beginning of the book to the end? So it might be helpful to go back to chapter 1, listen to the section about the Garcias, see how he changes from chapter 1 to chapter 5. Number 3, what inference can be made about the families throughout their experience? So we're talking about the whole entire washed up book. What can you infer about the families? Do you remember what an inference is? I know if you have me for ELA, you should be saying an educated guess, taking information and forming a conclusion. Number 4, what is a theme that could be developed in this chapter? Provide reasons why this theme connects with the text. So, my classroom, I go theme, and they say moral lesson. So, make sure you have your theme as a moral lesson from the story and it can transfer to any text. So, it shouldn't have characters' names, it shouldn't say washed up, it is something like in Little Red Riding Hood, the theme would be don't talk to strangers. Now we know it's that because if Red hadn't talked to the big bad wolf, Grandma wouldn't have gotten eaten, but she did. So that is why the theme, don't talk to strangers. What's the theme of Washed Up? And you need to tell us why it's the theme. Then, last but not least, you're going to do your summary, guys. Remember, 5 to 8 sentences, big things that happened in the chapter, but especially how this wraps up. How did everything conclude? Because now you're writing a summary that's for the whole entire story of Washed Up. So make sure you have big details in there. If you need to pause this, write it down, get it set up, and I'm going to get chapter 5 set up. What awesome dance moves here. All right, chapter 5, Washed Up with Mrs. Weaver. In the cloud forest, the ferns parted to reveal Shin, almost kneeling over the weight of his backpack. It had been a hard climb back to his family. Too bad a zip line couldn't travel upward. Mr. Liu had a hollow cough now, and May had patted her mother's clothes with tufts of cotton from the pods of a silk cotton tree. The Lius were still cold, and when the coconut husks Shin brought back caught fire with the first strike of a match, they huddled around it silently. We'll cross the river in the lowlands tomorrow, Shin told Mai quietly. Mai raised her eyebrow. Mountains? Mountain rivers were notoriously ferocious and fast flowing. Why could that be a problem? These are the cotton pads that they used to stuff their clothes. All right. Then Shin moved her makeshift rope he had twisted out of stripped bark. But Mom can't swim, hissed May. Shin then produced the orange harness. They would hitch their parents to the rope and cross the river at its broadest, shallowest point. How I got this harness is a long story for when we're out of here, he said when May pressed him for an explanation. Oliver limped back to his parents with a thermos of water that they fell upon gratefully. What took you so long? Says Mrs. Walpole, as soon as she caught her breath. On Shin's advice, the Walpoles moved north slowly, boiling water in a saucepan Gabriella had found, with borrowed matches. Eventually, they found a stream, and that stream led to a larger one. and then down all the way to a river and to food and water. We're safe! Shouted Miss Walpole, frolicking in the water. We've done it! I always knew we could. And there you see the family drinking their water and in a nice embrace or hug. Cut off by high tides, Gabriella took the longest to return to camp. Her heart beat faster as she glimpsed her father crouched at the bank of the swamp. She would tie the spare mosquito net Shin had given her around her father's ankle, and then they could heed to the river Shin had told them about. What do you think heed means in this sentence? Use your context clues if you don't know to help you figure it out. But when her father turned, he was smiling. The ankle's much better, he said, and I've never been happier to see a mosquito net. He showed her why. Mr. Garcia strung their net across the low tide line as the salty tidal waves washed in, then out, leaving behind a generous catch of fish. No more coconuts for dinner, he said gleefully. And Gabriella threw her arms around her father as she realized parents could be pretty surprising sometimes. And there they are embracing. Well, here we are on day 21, and our winners have been revealed. It's really no surprise that so many of our viewers voted for the Garcias, said Berry Blue, blowing her nose into a lacy white handkerchief. There were so many reasons why they deserved to win today. There were only two of them to begin with, and then Mr. Garcia was injured and they had to stay put. Yet they managed to stay alive. But do you know what I found most winning? And not just me, but all our viewers too. And here Barry Blue's chin trembled dramatically, that the Garcias decided to share their prize with the Walpoles and the Lous. And now the flying cameras panned across the beach to where the three families were sitting around a fire, cracking open coconuts, barbecuing fish, even laughing. In the wild, plants compete for sunlight and animals compete for food and water. Barry Blue was saying now, who would have thought that three children could rewrite the very rules of survival? But they did. And they taught the grown-ups a thing or two about working together, pooling resources, and sharing knowledge. A fat tear rolled down Barry Blue's perfect cheek. That's the takeaway, my friends. For those of us who stayed home on our comfy couches, watching and voting, it isn't just human beings who survived on this remote island, but humanity too. All right, kids, that is it for chapter 5 and all of Washed Up. We have now finished this wonderful book together. Here are our Cornell Note questions again. You can see them right here. So make sure you are answering these, getting these done, because we're going to want these when we come back to school. If you're doing it in Google Classroom, absolutely type them directly in there. If you want to take a picture and email it to your teacher, we would love that. You can have your parent take a picture and dojo it to us, whatever is easiest for your family and your situation. If you have any questions, leave a comment. I'll get to you as I can, or dojo your teacher, or email them using your school email address. Hope everyone's safe, and I hope to see you soon or on our next story that I'll read to you. Bye, guys.